parties up until, oh, well, I never met her after she grew up. You know, I didn't until I was working when they put the cement road through Spanish Fork. I was working on the road and with a team of horses and that, and we were grading it in front of her place. And she'd come out and talk to me, and you know, I looked like a hobo, but that didn't make any difference. We had to dress because we were working in dirt, gravel and stuff. I had high tops. She talked to me. And she was going over to the BYU high school, had a high school over there. She didn't finish high school here. She finished it over there to the BYU. And then when they put this main road in, I was about, about 18, I guess, or 19, somewhere along here. When I was working on the cement road. And then we just went from there. Finally, one time, we were dancing. In fact, there was a group of them, my sister Elsie, and Grandma, and Faye Hanson, and Mary Ellen Bowen, and Faye Page. There was about 8 or 10 Rhea. Rhea was the same age and lived in this ward. And they had kind of a group, just like you know, these teenager girls were in groups now, and they got going together like that. And of course, each got their job. After she graduated from high school, she took she'd work in the bank in the summertime, because her dad was a banker, First National Bank here in Spanish Fork, and she worked with him. And there was another girl, Lucille Peterson, that was a couple of years older, that had been working in the bank, and they kind of got together. And sometime we danced all the time.
Where did you dance?
Well, the pavilion is right down where the armory is now. We call it Pack Pavilion. Beautiful dance hall. And they danced 5 nights a week, all winter long, and 3 nights a week in the summertime. This was a dancing area. They come from everywhere to dance to Pax Pavilion. And they used to have good orchestras. Garland Morgan, you know him?
Yeah.
Well, he played in this orchestra, and the Ludlow people, they were all musicians. They had the best bands and that you could think of. And we imported them to have. Clubs would have dances, you know, things like that. Well, I got to go in there, and one day, I don't remember when it was, it had come about, dance. We danced with that group, and some my own age. My neighbor, the girl across the road, was named Grace. We danced with her, and I danced with my sister, Leora's age, and she had a sister named Rosetta. And we danced with them we do like that, see, just like they do now.
Yeah.
But and I danced with, and she liked to dance. Grandma loved to dance, and I quite was capable of dancing then, better than I am now. But we enjoyed it, you know. One night I asked her if I could take her home from the dance. And she says, "Would you?" I said, "I'd like to." And it was in the winter time. And of course, we went on that. Well, there was we called it a confectionery, a little place to eat just like they have now, like Denny's and all of them. So we went in there. It was operated by a fellow that this Mary Ellen worked in there, that one girl that she run around with. And we went in and we'd have a malt for 10 cents. I had I'd have about $1.50 maybe to go to the dance. It cost 50 cents to dance. And then I'd have it maybe $1 sometime, not $1, maybe 50 cents we could spend beside the dance. $1. $1 to buy the dance ticket, maybe a little left over. If we had enough to give them a drink, why, we'd go in and have a ball of milk. We'd get them for 10 cents, yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd have that, and, you know, because this Mary Ellen was working in there. And she'd have to get, after she'd dance, she'd go up there and go to work, and we'd go in and wait till she'd come out. And her boyfriend was a good friend of mine, Bill Christmas, that was married to Gladys Christmas. Mary Ellen died with their first baby. This Bill Christmas and Mary Ellen got married.
Mhm.
We got going together, you know, and finally we got a group that we had parties and danced together, and that was it, just like they do now, you know, cliques
Yeah.
or whatever you call them. And finally we just got going steady. And then the war came on, and she worked in the bank, and I had to, like I told you, work with Dad. But we went together, and then they did, at 21, they lowered the draft age down to 18.
Mm.
Well, she was just coming on to 19, Dad. And John Booth was the druggist, but he was on the draft board, and Grandpa Snell was the mayor then. He was mayor of the town. And John, I guess, and he had talked together or something. And of course, we'd been going together for quite a little while, dancing and to parties and such,
Mhm.
just having a good time together, you know, as groups.
Yeah.
Well, I'd either had to go to war, and left Dad without anything, or get married or something like that. And John Booth talked to her dad, I guess, I don't know, because they knew, because they were friends. They were in their same cliques, you know,
Mhm.
bankers and druggists and
Yeah.
doctors and John either told Grandpa or Grandpa was talking about it, and Grandma Snell, you know.
Mhm.
And they said, those two ought to get married. And then he wouldn't have to go to war. We could get him, you know, we could get him, what do you call it? He wouldn't, we could get the draft board to take him off of the draft so that he could help
Mhm.
farm. Because they says, we've got to have people that can do that. He's just as valuable here, helping to produce food as he would if he was drafted, maybe, or
That's
more
true.
so.
Yeah.
Because we need help, we need workers, and he knows what to do.
Mhm.
Because that's what he married until, well, we decided we'd wait then till after my mother's birthday, the first of the year. And so we did. We got married on the 7th of January.
And then, where did you live?
We lived at, the first house we lived in was over to Aunt Seeney's place, in the middle of the block. And then that's where Stella was born, over there. And then, of course, when Stella was about a year and a half, we went to California
What'd you go down to California for?
to work, because in the meantime, they had a run on the bank. They had, her father had this, he was president of this First National Bank here, and they had a bank in Payson. They had one in St. Anthony, Idaho. Well, the one in St. Anthony went broke, or that is, it was all farmers, you know, and farmers was hit hard, and because they didn't have nobody to help them farm, and they just turned their farms back to the bank. The bank had loaned them so much money.
Mm-hmm.
And so that bank was about to close, so this bank here helped them out. And then instead of them coming out of it, finally they had to close, So this bank lost a lot of money. And then when it lost money, all the depositors was afraid they were going to lose all their money, so they made a run on the bank to draw out their
Yeah.
savings and all.
Yeah.
Well, that put this bank in, and so it got so that it had to close.
Mhm.
And the one in Payson was the same. And the bank that's now the First Security, Pratt Thomas, well, he was a relative of Mr. Snell too, but you know, they were in competition.
Mhm.
And he didn't come to the rescue. If he'd have come to the rescue, they'd have never closed. But anyway, they had to close, so that, then her dad and them, when they closed that, he worked in Ogden for a while, but then he got her grandma Malcolm, or Grandma Snell's brothers, and them were all contractors, railroad people. And they went to California. They moved out of Idaho and went to California.
Mhm.
And they got doing road, subdividing road work and stuff. They were construction people, what they were.
Yeah.
And finally, when after Grandpa Snell quit the flour mills up at Ogden, why his brother-in-law, his Grandma Snell was their brother, the Malcolm's brother. Then he went down to California and worked with them. Well, in the winter time, that's when we went down in November. Why, they wrote home and said, Uncle Dave Malcolm, if you want to come down for a while and work with us, we'll give you a job.
Mhm.
So we decided to go down. And then two of the boys from Idaho, two of the Malcolm boys, waited until November before they moved down there. The other boys were down there, two of them. And so we went down there after. I had an aunt that lived in Los Angeles that we went to visit a lot. And we lived out in Lancashire, or that out by Universal City.
Mhm.
We went right through Universal City to go to our work.
And how long did you live down there?
Well, we went down November, and I believe it was, I forget, August or September we come back. Went back again for a couple of months, and then I come back. My brother wasn't out of the service, and I had my dad, and then,
You felt like you needed to come home to help?
yeah, I come back to help. My dad, health kind of failed him, and when I got a letter from down there, he says, if you can come back, there's plenty for you to do. There's a farm, we can divide the farm up if I have to quit. So we decided, well, just well come back. And when we come back, why, my dad's health was not too good, and my mother's. So we left Aunt Celie's place, so we come here and lived with my dad and my mother for 11 years.
So all the other kids had already moved and gone.
Huh?
So the other kids had already
Oh, they
gone.
were all gone, all but Mark. Mark was here. No, so, let's see, was Elsie here part of the, yeah, Elsie was here part of the time too, I believe. No, Mark got married. Yeah, Mark was here for a while. I know, but I don't remember whether Elsie was or not. But I know Mark was.
So you just lived here in the home with them?
Yeah.
And Snell was?
Well, when Snell was about 2 years old or something like that when we came back, a little better, you know.
Yeah.
Well, then Dorothy was born in 1927. In the meantime, mother had a miscarriage. We lost a miscarriage.
Uh-huh.
Well, then Dorothy was born in February 27th in 1927.
So you just lived here in the home with your dad and your mother?
Yeah, and then my dad died in 1931, and then we lived on to take care of mother. Grandma Blanche would go down to California because her mother was ill for a long time. And she'd make those trips down there, 4 and 5 times a year, or more than that. I believe she went 18 times last year that her mother was alive.
So she would just take the kids
You
with
get
her?
on the bus and go, you know. And then finally, my mother died in 1937. But you know, let's see, yeah, 1937. We was here for 11 years before my dad. I can't remember the exact year, but anyway, we were here, and when he passed away, we stayed here to take care of Mother. And in 11 years before my mother died, that we was here, we lived together in the household, and I never once heard Grandma Blanche ever say a word back to him. Couldn't drive the car, and she could drive the cars we had. My Grandma Blanche, and she took Dad any and everywhere, or helped if he needed parts or whatever on the farm. She could do that. She could drive a car, and he thought the world of her. And everybody loved her. She was, all of them, Rhea and all of them, you know, their cliques all loved one another.
Yeah.
They were just like that.
Well, Grandma was a very giving person. She was very compassionate, from what I've been told.
Oh, indeed, yes. She was, well, and in 1918 we had the flu here. That was before we were married. And she and her mother, her uncle, when the people were so bad in Idaho and everywhere, you know, the flu epidemic.
Yeah.
Her mother's brother killed a beef and brought it down from Idaho on the train and gave it to Grandpa Snell, a great big fat cow. Well, it was a heifer, you know, a young cow. And they cut that up and made soup and things out of that, out of the good meat on that animal. And my Grandma Blanche and her mother, because she could drive the car, my Blanche, and she and her mother would go around to these places where they were all in bed with the flu and couldn't get out and take soup to them. And, you know, and just saved their lives, that's all.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember not too many, well, it was after she died, and I got going over to the dance a time or two before I went with myself. There was a lady that belonged to the family Iceland people, and she come up to me and she said that how many times they brought soup to them while they were all down with the flu. There wasn't one of them could get out and help each other. They just, and how it saved their lives. And my Grandma Snell and Grandma Blanche went right into the homes, and neither one of them got the flu. And they gave soup to a man and his wife down here. The man died, but the woman lived. But they hadn't had anything to eat for a week before they found out, and they were just starving to death, you know. They're so sick and that they didn't have anything in the house. Nobody came to help them.
Yeah.
When Grandma Snell found that out, why, see, that's where they went. Yeah. And we had good times, we had. wonderful time, parties and dances and that. My sister-in-law and Grandma Blanche, why, they were just like sisters, you know, all the time, very close.
Mhm.
And then, so it was until my sister died. Then Lenore, that's Bill Nelson's wife.
Mhm.
You know her?
I know
Down there,
who, yeah.
I guess they live in your ward, don't they? Lenore Nelson.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, when she was younger than Dorothy. Well, she stayed here because my sister had died, and he didn't have anybody to take care of Lenore and Blair. That's the older boy.
Mhm.
That they only had the two, and then Lenore stayed here, and Grandma and Grandma Blanche took care of her for a long time until he finally got a housekeeper and that, and finally he married Aunt Hazel. You knew her,
Uh-huh.
did you?
Yeah.
Well, Uncle Dave, that was my brother-in-law that married my sister Bertha, and he married her. But he had different ones of his sister's family come and take care of. And Hutchings, you know her, don't you?
I know who you mean. Yeah.
Well, she went and worked in Uncle Dave's home, and her two of her sisters went and worked in the home until they got married, and then of course they couldn't work anymore. And then he hired another lady from down this end of town to come stay with the children. But Lenore stayed here more than she stayed over at home. And she and Dorothy kind of grew up together. Dorothy was born right here. The bed was set up right here. She was born right in this room.
Mm.
We didn't have a hospital to go to there.
No.
None
So
of
did
us
Grandma
had-
help her?
Huh?
So did Grandma help her, or did
Grandma.
your mother?
Huh?
Your
Yeah,
mother?
my mother was here then, you know, and Bertha come. They come and took care of her. And then after she got on her, you know, they had to stay in bed about 10 days, those days, times. They
Mm.
never got up and went home and like they do now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's where Dorothy was born. And then we thought we would want another, and she had another miscarriage. And Eva Johnson and Lan Johnson. We was a group, just like they have dance groups and that now. But,
Mhm.
and Clayson, Mabel Clayson and her husband. And it was just a party. We dogged and Jan and Harold.
Now, was this after you had your families?
Oh, yeah.
You
that's
take your
right.
kids up the
Well,
canyon?
sometimes, sometimes we'd take the kid more. Sometimes they'd stay home and with Grandma and Grandpa
Uh-huh.
Swenson, you know, as long as they was alive. But after then we took them with us. Yeah, the kids would go up on those parties, and oh, I'm telling you, they had fun in the canyon. Roland and Rhea had a camp wagon. You've seen the camp wagons, you know what they are.
Yeah.
That was their summer home a lot of the time. Rhea took care of Uncle Al after Aunt Sign died. That was my mother's sister.
Uh-huh.
You see, Uncle Al, Roland's dad and mother,
Mhm.
and my dad and mother were brothers and sisters. But our dads were brothers, and our mothers were sisters.
Oh.
And Blaine and Bernice down there,
Uh-huh.
Blaine and that family, and Grant, you know.
Uh-huh.
Well, did you know Grant, Blaine's younger brother,
Yeah.
and William? Did you know them all?
Well, I know who you mean.
Well, you know who I mean. But their father and my father were brothers, and their mother and my mother were sisters. So there was three brothers and three sisters that was married to each other, see?
Mhm.
And we're double cousins in that
Yeah.
respect, see?
Yeah.
And then Martha over here, do you know Martha Mitchell, don't you?
Uh-huh.
Don't you?
Uh-huh.
All right. Her mother was half sister to Grandpa Snell. Grandma's father, and Martha's mother was half brother and sister, because her grandma Snell's, or Grandpa Snell's mother was a half. What do we got? I turned around a little. But anyway, that's how it was. Martha's mother, and then Martha's father was my dad's full brother, see? So that's how close we were related there.
Mhm. But you'd all go up the canyon, you'd have a picnic?
Well, yeah, but not all of us. It was Roland and Rhea, Elmer and Sylvia,
Uh-huh.
and Eva Jensen, and it was just the dance crowd that we went with, not my sisters so much.
Oh,
They
I
didn't
see.
go, or anything like that up there. But it was just our age, you know, like I told you about Mary Ellen and all.
Mhm.
But Rhea and Grandma Blanche was just like sisters, you know, just like.
I've heard that they were really close.
Oh yeah.
They did a lot together.
Yeah, they're just like Gertie and this Alice that we talked about.
Well, did Rula and Rhea live in that home over there the whole
Yeah,
time?
all the time that they were married, from the day they got married, they lived there with Uncle Al and Aunt Sine, and Aunt Sine died, and Rhea took over in the house and stayed there all her life and took care of Uncle Al and Norma and Harold until they got married, and like that.
Mhm.
Stayed right on in that home all their life.
Well, I can see how Rhea and Grandma Blanche would have been close then.
Yeah, they were
'Cause you
together
lived so
all the
close.
time because
Yeah.
they were in the same group all the time.
Yeah.
There was about, well, let's see now, I can count them all. There was Rhea and Reuben, Grandma and myself, and Aunt Sylv and Elmer. That's 6, isn't it? And Les Clayson and his wife, that's 8. Burnell Jensen and his wife, that's 10. And Len Johnson and his wife was 12. There was 12 of us that used to make parties and go up there. And then, of course, after Grandma Blanche's sister, Margaret, and she married a man from Ogden.
Mhm.
They lived in Ogden. When they'd come down, why, they'd be included in the party if they was here when we'd all go up. We'd go up and have parties, and, you know, everybody potluck, and all got together, cooked up the big meal, and
Mhm.
at night we would sing, and some of them could, there were 2 or 3 of them, one Les Clayson could play the harmonica, and we just had a ball of a time, you know, out under the stars.
Sounds like fun memories.
Put up a tent so that 2 or 3 tents, in fact, we had. We put up tents, and Rhea and Roland had the camp wagon, and then the last several years, they built cabins up there, and then we went to the cabin, and that was a little improvement of it.
And this was up Spanish Fort Canyon?
Yeah, up Spanish Fort Canyon. That was just like going now to all these cruises and stuff. That's where we went for our parties.
Uh-huh.
Good time. And we had it. And the men those that wanted to go out on horseback, Roland and Stroll Clear was the riders, or Roland and another man, or different men that he rode with. Why, we'd take our horses on up with us, you know.
Mhm.
One guy'd take you, that was before we even had, until we got cattle trucks. And one guy would take you, get maybe 6 horses and saddled and that. And then the way he'd go up the canyon with them. You know, saddle all, the horses were all saddled and put a couple of them tie them together, start them up the road and the others would follow, go up to camp, and we'd have a party maybe for a weekend. Like we'd go on a Friday, we could get from here up to where the camp was from about 2 o'clock in Friday afternoon, and then we'd stay over Sunday sometimes. If we took the weekend, or sometime we would have maybe 4 or 5 days off, and we'd go up there.
Yeah.
Maybe not everyone like the big bunch, but you know, that's what we would do. Oh, we had so much fun. Some of the men liked to go out in strawberry and face, and some liked to go riding and help rule in their marked calves or something where the cattle were, or take out salt or something like that for the cattle. Just something to be doing, so we can have, and at night we'd have a nice party.
Yeah.
A sing fest. 'Cause Jan and Harold were good singers. They could sing together. Oh, they had beautiful voices. And they sang all those pretty old time songs. And things like that, you know.
Yeah.
Really, it would just make life happy. And no matter what happened, it was, if we'd see a badger or something, we'd all get together and try to dig him out. You know, they could dig as fast as we could dig. And then we was going to catch him alive, see. The women would get up, if we was on our way home or something, and they would get up in the trucks. We had little old pickup trucks, and they were little Model Ts and that. And the women would get up, and when the badger'd come running out, we'd make a half slip knot, you know, they got peaked heads. And if you could get him out, get the rope around his neck, back of his ears, and pull that half knot tight, you could choke him down so that we'd choke him till he was pretty near unconscious, and then we could put him in a box or something. But usually we just give up because we couldn't catch him. But there was quite a few badgers that was wild animals.
Yeah.
We used to do that for amusement. Anything like that, or else we had a couple of Kodaks. They were old time ones there. In fact, some of the pictures that I lost was part of them. Well, I was called on a stake mission to serve with a man by, his name was Dave Bowick, and we went as companions. We had a mission, part of the Spanish Fork in Salem, just in this area here. We didn't go into a foreign mission.
How long were you? I mean, how old were you?
Oh, I was married. I don't know. I guess it was in the 40s or 50s.
So you were already married to Grandma?
Oh yes, yes. Our kid was raised at all.
Oh.
Yeah, Snell and Dorothy were grown. In fact, yeah, they were grown. Yeah, we were called by the stake presidency to go on a mission. From the church authority. You know, like home missionaries are today.
Yeah. Did
We
you
were
teach anyone?
70s had to do that. At that
Yeah.
time. That was after we were ordained 70s.
Did you have any special experiences when you were a missionary?
Well, not too many, other than we kind of brought more of them to come out. There were some that had gone, you know, kind of careless. I remember one man, he was Danishman. He was a horse trader, Johnny Applesco in Salem. He was, his family before him was devoted people. They come from Denmark. And they talked Danish. And he didn't know whether he liked the church too well or not, but we talked to him. And he traded horses with us a time or two, because I was in, Dave Bowie run a clothing store here in town.
Mhm.
And this Johnny Appleskull, we called it, that was her name, Appleskull. And he warmed up and come back and come into the, stronger in the church until he died. And that's about the only one that I'd say a conversion. I think there were several of them that come back in with better church members, I would say. But that's about what our mission consisted of. And we were released. We served her, I think 18 months is what we had to be missionaries. Yeah, 18 months. And we enjoyed it too. We went about once sometimes every once a week, and sometimes it'd be 2 weeks. Out of an evening, you know, I would drive the car, and he would do most of the preaching. I didn't do any preaching, I just went along. But we enjoyed meeting the people, and of course we were informed of the ones that were kind of drifted away.
So you just, sounds like you just mainly were there to help the people who'd gone maybe a little bit less active.
That's right, and
help to bring them back in.
Bring them back into being more acceptable to the church. And we got results. We was accepted very well. People was happy and always told us to come back while we were doing that, you know. Ever since I was made the 70s, still am. Home teachers, we called them ward teachers for years.
Did you?
Yeah, just ward teachers.
Well, it's important to go out and visit with people.
Well,
and
we
help
went
them.
right up from deacons on up into the church, through one, you know, deacon, teachers, priests, elders, and so on up the line. They didn't send the missionaries out when I grew up through my life like they do now. Every boy a missionary. Yeah. I was never called to go on a foreign mission, you might say, of any kind.
Well, I think there was an awful lot of work to be done just around here.
Well, we did, yeah. We ward teeth, or home teeth as they call it now, right in our own ward, or such, every week. We were first married. I don't know, she didn't want to, and I didn't. We just thought that we didn't think too much about it, dear.
But you went later.
We were busy making a living, things like that. And there wasn't the people going to the temple in those days. It was the bishop that we had then, Bishop Isaac Briggs, that got coming, and we were friendly with them. They were good friends of ours, and we liked them, you know. And finally he come one time and said, I would like you to go to the temple. And that's what we did.
When did you and Grandma go?
Well, Snell was a little baby, or a little fellow then. I believe it was about a year or 2 years after Snell.
Which temple did you go to?
Salt Lake Temple.
Do you remember that?
And of course, I went to the temple for quite a long time until my eyes got too bad. And Mother, Grandma Blanche and I and Rhea and Rowland would go to the temple. You know, when they had temples. We did temples, but not as much as they do now, I guess.
Do you remember when you and Grandma went to the temple? The first time?
Yes. Yeah. Rhea and Rowland went with us, and Bishop and I, and Riggs and his wife went with us. And in fact, there was Rhea and Rowland, they hadn't been to the temple, and they went to the temple too.
At the same time?
Yeah.
So there was a group of you?
Yes. just like now, maybe they'll get a group and have a temple session.
Mhm.
And of course, we were shielding each other and our kids. Lenore and Lenore was, let's see, was it twins, right? Or just Lenore? But Lenore and Snell, I know, was sealed to us. Snell to us, and Lenore to me and Drew.
Uh-huh.
They weren't married in the temple. I tell you, we were just working, he was riding in the canyon and I was working with my dad. And things like that didn't seem to take hold like it does now, because we never had any, we were, well, in fact, I guess our lives were just busy.
Yeah.
Is why we did the way we went.
Well, and to go up to Salt Lake, it was quite an excursion for you to go up.
Indeed, yes, you know, we didn't have the cars we have now. In fact, when we went up, we even had to borrow Grandpa Snell's car the one time.
So the first time you went up, it was Rulon and Rhea and you and Grandma.
Yes.
And you each took your children that you had then.
And I forget who it was. Oh, when they're both dead, it was, I believe, a Beck. Beck man and young man from the third ward, other ward. There was the stake.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, see.
Yeah.
Had a temple session for us to go to the temple and be married, sealed each other and families. That's how that came about. And we went to the temple after, whenever they'd hold temple session. Went to Manti. I went after Mother died. I went to Manti there for 2 or 3 years. You know, when the high priest would take sessions. But then when my eyes went, it was so hard I just backed away from it.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of them do it, but it just seemed like I didn't feel, I felt like I would cause a burden to people. I don't know why I did that, but, you know.
Well,
was
it's
just
harder.
different.
Do you have any specific memories about that day that you went with Grandma? Do you
What?
remember being in the temple?
Oh yes, it was beautiful. Yes, that was, let's see, who went up with us? He took care of Snell until he came into the zoo.
Sometimes they have people just right there at the temple that take care of them.
Well, I believe it was, I wonder if it wasn't Sylvia, because Elmer and Sylvia was married in the temple.
So they had already gone?
Huh?
Elmer and Sylvia had been married in the temple?
Yes, yeah. They was married before we were, before Blanche and I, Grandma Blanche and I. Then Elmer, well, Floyd, that was the only boy that they had. They lost 2. And then Floyd was born, let's see, I believe she was pregnant with Floyd when he had to go in the service. Now, it was either Floyd or one of the ones they lost. Now, I can't remember all of that. You know, that was kind of, so many years gone.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Kind of left me. That's what we were, partners in the farming business. Snell and I took the farm and every chance we got, he'd work away or I'd work away if we had spare days. And finally, then we'd buy more ground until we got to ground, pretty much all the ground that we have around us. And the grandkid, Roger helped, Clark helped, but he didn't like it. But Clark done an awful lot to help raise the family. Oh, he was one of the best boys that could be. And Roger, they were all good. Every one of them was just wonderful boys to work good workers and done what was they were told to do. And the same with Dorothy and her family. They were all so wonderful to us. Yes, but that's, you know, and then of course, now we wanted him to continue college, but he went down to junior college to California. Grandma and Grandpa Snell lived down there then.
Mhm.
And of course Dixon, that was the oldest boy, Grandma's oldest brother. He went up to the AC,
Uh-huh.
and he talked Snell into going down after he graduated from the AC. He talked Snell into going down to Pomona and going to the junior college. And that's where he met George. And then, of course, George finally came up here to visit. That's how he and Dorothy met. And then this Tom Bromley, he wanted to come up. He wanted to meet Dorothy. He wanted to go with her, but she couldn't take to Tom. Nice fellow, but George was her desire, her love.
George won her heart, huh?
Yeah, he won her heart. And she won his, and after they met a time or two, you know, and he made a visit or two here, why her folks, and they had another couple that was good friends to them. They made a special trip up here to see what kind of girl Dorothy was, because George was going with her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Snell and Dorothy was feeding these show calves and that. When they seen her out, they thought she would be a good girl for their son to marry, because she could do anything that was, but she was working in the bank and feeding calves and everything at the same time. Mm-hmm. After she got out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And then she worked at Hill Air Force Base one summer, and then she got appendicitis. And after that, then she just worked here and got a job here in the First Security Bank. It was commercial bank at that time. And then when they became engaged in that, then she went to California. And she never did, Dorothy never did get to meet George's dad. He died of a heart attack before she got to know him. The day that they was here, she had come home for lunch. They come after lunch. We had a picket fence all around the house, and I was taking down the pickets, and Ray Allen had this home built in over here. Ray Allen and Mary Carroll built this home over here.
Mm-hmm.
Or bought it. They bought it. And these couples come here, and well, just his father and mother come. They've been up to Salt Lake to see his sister. Her husband worked at Montgomery Ward in Salt Lake. And they come here, and they went to that house over there to find out if this is where we lived, see. And I was tearing down the picket fence, because we were taking the whole fence out here. And of course, I met him right out here. We come in and talked and made ourselves acquainted and sit right here and visit. Had a nice visit. And talked in general about George and his in the service. And then after he came home, went to school, and how he got acquainted with Snell. Just, you know, and she went down to meet him, but he had a heart attack and died before she got to meet him. She went down and stayed with Grandma and Grandpa Snell there for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then on, why, he made enough visits up here, come hunted there a few years. Finally, wanted to ask me if he could have her, and we went hunting deer that day, and I know maybe I was mean, I don't know, but I kept evading it because I knew what he wanted. But it was kind of funny. Finally, we were sitting out here to the table, and he asked about it. And I said, well, Grandma, and I was at the table. We were all having either breakfast or dinner. I don't think it was, but anyway. Yes, I said. I turned to Grandma and said, what do we think about this? And I said to her, I said, well, I said, George, I said, you can have our daughter. We'll let you have our daughter. They were loving parents. They loved it just like you. We all love our families today. And how good they were in the neighborhood. All the neighbors around here. My father would see that the widows of the ward had potatoes or grain to make barley coffee. They called it barley coffee, or anything like that, or meat. When we would kill hogs in the winter to cure, my dad seen that every widow in this ward, and some out of this ward, had a nice piece of meat, sausage, and roast and stuff, and a little bacon or something for either a Thanksgiving or a Christmas present. And he made it so that every widow got something that we were friends with and that. Kind, you know. And my mother would always fix up a little pat of sausage and a roasted pork when they cured the hogs, and take over to the neighbor, and all the neighbors. There was 3 neighbors around here then, and up to Grandpa Swenson's, and they would exchange those things, you know. Whenever my dad dressed hogs for the people around here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he would dress for Uncle Al and Grandpa Swenson and Uncle Joe. And he killed pigs in the winter, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so that they could cure them and fix them. Well, for near every one of them would exchange a pat of sausage or something, what cured meat they would do, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his. There was nobody ever went hungry if my dad do it. So congenial one with another, and there was no time that my dad or my mother didn't have time to help somebody out. And this lady across the street here would come over nearly every morning to see how Maggie was. We always called my mother Maggie. And the lady across the street from Thelma's mother, Thelma Christmas's grandmother would come over to see how Grandma Maggie was. And Del Banks had lost his wife, and my mother would go over to see how his kid was making until he had a home keeper. It was just like that all the way around the whole neighborhood, over to Uncle Al and Aunt Shiny's place. It seemed like we were all one big family, let's put it that way, and everybody loved each other. And like I said, my dad never, or mother, or any of them for that matter around here, but what they didn't have time to help one another out if they needed help. Change work or do this or do that. Sickness and that, they were there every on the minute if they knew about it. He loved us in a manner like this, that they never once abused us in any fashion. Never. But we had to do what we was told to do. And if we didn't, why, they would never abuse us in any way, but they would make it so that if I didn't get the kindling in before dark, when I was a little fellow, I had to go out after dark and get that kindling. My dad might be out on the porch or somewhere watching me, you know, so that I wouldn't be scared to pieces.
Mhm.
But we had to do it.
Yeah.
And that is in my life. Now LT and Mark had it a little different than that. Because we was grown and they wasn't quite as stern maybe as that. But they loved us. We was never abused in any sense, anyway, no matter how. I can remember that we was scolded, and that's about with maybe that. But we had to do what we were told, or else we'd have to pay a price for it. My mother and them had a reunion every year on her birthday. The first day birthday was the first day. She had all my dad's brothers and sisters and half brothers and sisters. The Swenson reunion that could have a party, had it on her birthday,
Mhm.
once a year, as long as they were able when we were small and their families were small. Sometimes there'd be as high as maybe 70 to 100 people here for an evening on the 1st of January. Maybe it wasn't every year, but I know it was a lot of years. We had a family reunion every year up until late in life, after Grandma Blanche came into the family. She was part of the reunion for years. In fact, we went down to the Kayavat Forest, and the Arizona people that was in the family come from Arizona, and we had 4 days of it down there. From the 7th, 5 days. In fact, a reunion. They come and they fed the whole entire group one day, and we fed our individual families, and then one day out of the 5, each family would feed the others, make a family for everybody. It was beautiful. Swenson was a good man and that, but he wasn't as congenial or that one with another as my dad was with people. He was more like, well, I'd call him a little stern, you know.
Mhm.
We got along fine with him. Never any harsh words or anything, or you know, any dissent. But it would just seem like we wasn't as close as maybe my grandchildren and great grandchildren or to us now. We wasn't as close to him as our families are now to me and Grandma Blanche and even Grandma Gertie, we call it, is now.
Yeah.
Grandpa Nelson, oh, they were kind. Grandpa Nelson, he was a comedian. When we were kids, and he'd come down to see us, he could just make us laugh until our side would hurt. You know, telling funny stories, putting them into story fashion, or else getting us on like this when we was little, just big enough to turn us up and down, and he'd ride us like a pony, do this to us until his legs would give right out. He was a big man, quite large and quite heavy, but he was just the best comedian, and all his family was. They all followed in his footsteps. And my grandmother was so kind. Always had, no matter when us grandchildren would go up to her house, my mother maybe would send us up with something to give them, because they didn't have the necessities of life that a lot of people have, because he worked on the section until he got a stroke. He drank too much cold water one time and made him have a stroke. And when the section wanted to put ice in the water, he drank too much ice water and he had a stroke. Grandma Nelson, when we would go there, we were just delighted to go there. And we'd like to sleep up to her house if she'd let us. You know, with one of the, like Aunt Florence or Uncle Hugh, I would sleep with Uncle Hugh, or the girls would sleep with Aunt Florence or something like that. But she always had something to give us. Now, she'd make cakes and put these little pretty little candy things on them, you know. And no matter how dry that cake was, it was the best piece of cake you could ever eat. For a hamburger or anything like that, it was some little thing out of the house that she had to give us. And if it was an apple or some kind of fruit or whatnot, or a nice drink they used to make, homemade lemonade, anything like that. It was a treat, that's what it was, a little treat. And a little dish of dried fruits. They used to dry a lot of fruit. Oh, if we could have that, that was delightful. You know, things like that is what I remember so well about them. Kind, sing to us, and whenever when our children were born, my grandmother took care of Grandma Blanche when Snell was born, and she broke her arm. She went out. We didn't have inside plumbing. She went out to the well to get a bucket of water and slipped on the little porch that was surrounded the well and broke her arm. Still, she took care of us and helped. And then when Dorothy was born, I don't remember whether she came down with. I think she did.